welcome to TV Africa News, and thank you for always joining us. This is Africa Today. My name is Najuma Luima, but first are the headlines. Fury at Entebbe as passengers miss flight after rapid COVID test results come late. KCCA to rename City Road after BMK today. Nyirangong volcano victims still homeless months after disaster in DRC. And in sports, defender Ramadan Onduparaka Michari parts ways. A warm welcome once again. Now the news in detail. There was fury at Entebbe Airport on Tuesday afternoon after over 100 passengers missed their flight to United Arab Emirates after the results of their rapid COVID-19 tests arrived late. The incident happened when a number of passengers who were supposed to fly using Emirates flight number EK 730 missed the flight after results came in only 15 minutes to the time of closing the boarding gate. We have more.
On Tuesday, by the time the Safari Lab sent in the COVID-19 test results, it was late for every passenger to have finalized with verification of the results, and consequently many missed their flight. One of the passengers tweeted on Tuesday evening that Emirates passengers have missed their flight because Safari Lab sent COVID-19 test results at 2:45 p.m. yet Emirates closed its gate boarding at 3 p.m. and they could not work on everyone in time. Another tweet confirmed the development, saying he was among the few who were able to have his results verified to fly to United Arab Emirates after the delay by the lab. Many of those who commented on the incident wondered why they could not get value for their money, having paid 250,000 shillings for the rapid COVID tests. A statement from the Uganda Civil Aviation Authority confirmed that about 100 passengers who are scheduled to travel to UAE aboard Emirates flight number EK 730 at 18:45 hours on Tuesday missed their flight due to the late arrival of Entebbe International Airport following a delay in getting their COVID PCR test results. Civil Aviation Authority explained that passengers from Uganda to United Arab Emirates are required by the destination country to have an additional PCR test certificate issued within 6 hours prior to departure.
Kampala Capital City Authority councillors will today, during a council meeting, table a motion to rename one of the city roads after deceased businessman Buraimu Mwanga Chibirige alias BMK for his contribution towards the development of the country. BMK passed on last week, leaving behind a business empire stretching across East Africa and some parts of the world. Nalugo reports.
Kampala Capital City Authority Executive Secretary in charge of Works and Fiscal Planning, Hakim Kiza Saula, who represents Luaga North 2, told journalists yesterday that renaming a road after the late BMK would be the best way to honor him. During BMK's burial on Sunday in Nkowe, Wakiso District, the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Anita Among, told mourners that Parliament would pass a resolution to rename Wampeo Avenue after him. However, Kampala Lord Mayor Erias Lukwago later noted that while renaming Wampeo Avenue is a brilliant idea, it is the mandate of Kampala Capital City Authority. According to Clause 610 of Kampala City Road Naming Guidelines issued by KCCA's Directorate of Fiscal Planning in 2017, the President of the Republic of Uganda, Cabinet, Parliament of Uganda, KCCA Council and Division Councils may by presidential order or special resolution assign or rename an existing road. This can then be implemented by Kampala Capital City Authority Council. The KCCA Act mandates the authority to initiate and formulate policy and enact legislation for the proper management of the capital city. In 2017, KCCA Council, headed by Mr. Lukwago, renamed Nachivubo Mills after former Kampala City Mayor and businessman John Sebana Kizito. John Sebana Kizito Road stretches from the Clock Tower and joins Namirembe Road at the Ham Shopping Grounds. Most of the city roads are renamed after foreign personalities. The debate to have all city roads renamed after local personalities still rages on.
Moving on, Uganda will on 28th September 2021 join the rest of the world to commemorate the International Day for Universal Access to Information under the theme The Right to Know, Building Back Better with Access to Information. This will involve making access to information a central tool to work on promoting human rights, accountability, participatory democracy, and inclusive development. Kachanchi has more.
Addressing the media at the Uganda Media Center, the Minister of State for Information, Communication, Technology and National Guidance, Honorable Godfrey Kabyanga, said access to information being central to work on promoting accountability, participatory democracy and inclusive development. The commemorations will highlight the significance of having constitutional, statutory and policy guarantees for the public and the need to ensure its implementation to build back better beyond the COVID-19 crisis.
Ministry of Information, Communication Technology and National Guidance is pleased to associate with the sponsorship of today's event with the Africa Freedom of Information Center, the United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner, and Twaweze East Africa. This is because access to information is central to our work on promoting human rights, accountability, participatory democracy, and inclusive development. This year's commemoration is anchored within the framework of the right to know, building back better with access to information. The commemoration will highlight the significance of having constitutional, statutory, and policy guarantees for public and the need to ensure its implementation to build back better beyond the COVID-19 crisis.
The minister added that it's every Ugandan's right to access information held by the government as stipulated by Article 41 of the 1995 Constitution, which also mandates Parliament to make laws prescribing procedures for obtaining access to the information, meaning that every Ugandan has a legal and constitutional right to access information held by any government institution.
Of the 1995 Constitution of the Republic of Uganda gives every citizen the right to access information held by the government. The same article mandates Parliament to make laws prescribing procedures for obtaining access to that information. Therefore, to this effect, the government adopted the Access to Information Act in 2005 and later the Access to Information Regulations in 2011. This means that every Ugandan has a legal and constitutional right to access information held by any institution of government. As government, we firmly believe that access to information is necessary for realizing other fundamental human rights vital for sustainable development and economic growth. For example, it is essential to hold leaders accountable, increase safety in the fight against COVID-19, and ensure access to health, education, and justice for all.
The Honorable Minister also said that the Ministry for National Guidance remains committed to working with all stakeholders, including civil society, private sector, development partners, and its citizens to realize the fundamental rights of access to information as a pathway for sustainable development and transformative governance.
Let's take a very quick short break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News, The Right to Know. The victims of Mount Nyiragongo are still homeless almost 5 months since the volcano erupted, destroying their homes and crop fields. They had found shelter in a school but have been evicted ahead of the start of a new term.
The families, which number out 160, have now set up makeshift tents in the backyard of Chisoko Market in the Kasika district of Goma, capital of North Kivu province. Eastern Congo's wet season has begun and the tents offer little protection from the rain or waterborne diseases. The Goma city government's pledge to find alternative housing for the displaced has not been fulfilled. Donatien Bagabwe, administrator of the Kasika district, said they informed the mayor of the city through their chief of the district, who instructed them to relocate the families immediately, and since then they have been wondering where to take them. The authorities have been accused of botching their response to the disaster. Jackson Zahera, an activist, said that forbidding someone who was living comfortably in his house to build his house and to leave him in tarpaulin houses without humanitarian assistance is a serious violation of rights and a notorious incompetence. Mount Nyiragongo went on rampage in May without warning, sending hundreds of thousands scampering for safety. It was later revealed that scientists working in the volcano's observatory had stopped operations due to a lack of funds.
Egypt on Tuesday showcased an ancient tomb structure belonging to the cemetery complex of King Jose, a pharaoh who lived more than 4,500 years ago, following extensive restorations of the site. The structure, known as the Southern Tomb, is largely underground and includes a labyrinth of corridors decorated with hieroglyphic carvings and tiles.
The Step Pyramid is the oldest known pyramid and one of the first examples of monumental architecture from the ancient world according to UNESCO. It is believed to have been the inspiration for the pyramids at Giza. Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities and Tourism say that the opening this week of the tomb structure marks the completion of restoration work that started in 2006 and included reinforcing of the underground corridors, refurbishing the carvings and the tiled walls, and installing lighting. Dr. Mustafa Wasli, Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, told journalists that the effort cost around 130 million Egyptian pounds. In addition to the Southern Tomb, the Saqqara Plateau hosts at least 11 pyramids, including the Step Pyramid, as well as hundreds of tombs of ancient officials and other sites that range from the First Dynasty from 2920 BC to 2770 BC to the Coptic period of 395 to 642. The Saqqara site is part of the necropolis of Egypt's ancient capital of Memphis that includes the famed Giza pyramids, as well as smaller pyramids at Abusa, Dasha, and Abu Ruwaish. The ruins of Memphis have designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the 1970s.
Moving on, Burkina Faso authorities rescued 374 children between January and March from being trafficked to neighboring countries to work in agriculture or small-scale mines, according to government figures released on Monday. We have more.
Speaking to reporters yesterday, the Minister for Humanitarian Action, Helens Marie-Laurence Ibudo, said that for some time now the phenomenon affecting children has grown to worrying proportions in their country. Last year, 2,318 children were intercepted through checks on buses or through denunciations, according to the ministry. Most were under 16 and destined to work in plantations, artisanal mines, or for domestic work in countries neighboring Burkina Faso. The ministry said that Ivory Coast, the world's largest cocoa producer, is a major destination for child trafficking and has also intercepted and repatriated miners used for work in the fields. In addition, 58 children found by security forces during various operations were handed over to social services, Ibudo said, also highlighting the scale of problems of homeless children living on the streets.
Away from that, Haiti's chief prosecutor on Tuesday asked a judge to charge Prime Minister Ariel Henry in the slaying of the president and asked officials to bar him from leaving the country, a move that could further destabilize a country that seemed to be coming after turmoil that followed the assassination and a recent major earthquake. The order filed by Port-au-Prince prosecutor Bedford Cloud came on the same day that he had requested Henry meet with him and explain why a key suspect in the assassination of President Jovenel Moise called him thrice just hours after the killing. Cloud said the calls were made at 4:03 and 4:20 a.m. on July 7th, adding that evidence shows the suspect, Joseph Badio, was in the vicinity of Moise's home at that time. Badio once worked for Haiti's Ministry of Justice and at the government's anti-corruption unit until he was fired in May amid accusations of violating unspecified ethical rules. In the two-page document, Cloud said the calls lasted a total of 7 minutes and that Henry was at the Hotel Montana in Port-au-Prince at that time. He also noted that a government official tweeted last month that Henry told him he never spoke with Badio. On Monday, Justice Minister Rockefeller Vincent ordered the chief of Haiti's National Police to boost security for Cloud because the prosecutor had received important and disturbing threats in the past 5 days. Let's once again take a very quick short break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News, The Right to Know. In our business news today, Angola's ex-president José Eduardo dos Santos on Tuesday arrived in the southern African nation from Spain, the first time he has returned home since retiring, according to the state press agency. He landed in Angola's capital, Luanda, on Tuesday morning after spending 2 years in Barcelona.
Dos Santos left the country in 2019 after handing the reins over the previous year to President João Lourenço, who has since targeted the former first family in an anti-graft probe. Dos Santos, 79, is accused of appointing relatives and friends to top positions during his 38-year presidency of the oil-rich nation. Critics say corruption was rife during his rule, with wealth amassing in the hands of a select few and billions of dollars allegedly embezzled from state-owned companies. President João Lourenço, who took office in 2018, has promised to root out graft and restore the oil-dependent economy. He launched an anti-corruption campaign against the former regime that has honed in on some of Dos Santos' children. Prosecutors in 2019 froze the business assets of Dos Santos' billionaire daughter Isabel Dos Santos, appointed chair of state oil company Sonangol during her father's rule. Removed from the position shortly after Lourenço stepped in, Isabel is being probed for allegedly siphoning state funds into offshore assets, accusations she vehemently denies.
In our health news today, Nigeria is seeing one of its worst cholera outbreaks in years, with more than 2,300 people dying from suspected cases as West African nation struggles to deal with its impact alongside the coronavirus pandemic. A total of 69,925 suspected cholera infections had been recorded as of September 5th in 25 out of the country's 36 states and the capital, Abuja, according to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. Children between the ages of 5 and 14 are also the most affected age group in this current health crisis, which has a case fatality ratio of 3.3%, more than double that of the coronavirus, 1.3%, in Nigeria. Nigeria is still facing a third wave of the pandemic, mainly driven by the Delta variant, and authorities are intensifying efforts to vaccinate a population among whom less than 1% have received both doses of a COVID-19 shot. States in Nigeria's north where flooding and poor sanitation increase the risk of transmission are the hardest hit by the resurgence in cholera infections. All the 19 states in the northern region account for 98% of the total suspected cases. Cholera is endemic and seasonal in Africa's most populous country, where only 14% of the 200 million population have access to safely managed drinking water supply services. According to government data from 2020, open defecation is still practiced by at least 30% of residents in 14 states. The country continues to detect cases of yellow fever, Lassa fever, measles, and other infectious diseases which have become annual outbreaks. In our sports news today, defender Yakubu Ramadan reached a mutual consent agreement with the management of Onduparaka Football Club to part ways, making him the 5th player to leave the club. The kingpin defender still had a year left on his employment contract, but the two parties agreed to move on. Kachanchi has more on this report.
Ramadan, who only featured in 3 matches, thanked the management of Onduparaka Football Club for the special time accorded to him during his stay at the club, adding that it was time to move on and seek greener pastures. Onduparaka Chief Executive Officer Edison Sabasaba confirmed having granted the defender a contract termination notice. Ramadan joined Onduparaka after a brief spell at Maida. He had also previously played at Sports Club Villa, Soltilo Bright Stars, Sports Club Victoria University, AFC Leopards of Kenya, and Lusaka Dynamos in Zambia. The defender has a calm head, a good game reader, hardworking at all times during competitive football duels. Ramadan joins other excitees from Onduparaka as Noel Nasasira, Moses Okot, Living Kabong, Oscar Gaba, Augustine Opoka, Najibu Tusabe Guaido, Hakim Magombe, Ali Muchibi, Hamis Muongi, Augustine Okoch, Shabani Waswa, Dennis Kaka Andama, Mahadi Ajobe, and Muhammad Medi Cheyune.
Now, before we end our news bulletin today, let's take a recap of our top stories. Fury at Entebbe as passengers miss flight after rapid COVID test results come late. KCCA to rename City Road after BMK today. Nyirangong volcano victims still homeless months after disaster in DRC. And in sports, defender Ramadan Onduparaka Michari parts ways. That was the news. Thank you for always joining us. Please to stay tuned. More programming coming your way.